Since it's 5 p.m., I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Vallecitos Water District for Wednesday, July 1st of 2020. I think we've kind of got the hang of how to do these meetings now. So for the public, we've left the notice up there. So if you don't know what to do, if you would like to participate, you have a chance to read that. And otherwise, you're all doing really great, but I'd like to remind the directors and staff to please identify yourself once you're recognized to speak. I still struggle with your voices a little bit. So having said that, it's time for roll call. So Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Sinella.
Here. Director
Elitharp.
Here.
Director Martin.
Present.
And Director Evans is here as well, so we're all in attendance. Next thing we move on to is to adopt our agenda for the current meeting. Unless there are any changes or additions, do I have a
Martin,
motion?
move to adopt.
Thank you. Well done. And a second?
Hernandez.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for the meeting today. I'll get answers by roll call. Director Sinella?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Sinella, how about twice? Director Martin?
Yes.
Director Elitharp? Are you there?
He looks frozen.
He looks frozen, he does.
Or he's got a great poker face, one or the other.
Wow. I guess Director Elitharp can't hear us. Well, I'm going to say yes.
Oh, he's back. You want to ask him again?
Yes, I will. He's back. I don't see him. Director Elitharp?
Yes.
Did you approve to adopt the agenda?
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Glad you're back. All
Thank
right. So it's been moved and seconded and passed unanimously that we adopt the agenda. And now, before we move forward, we're open for public comment. And I'm going to ask GM Pruitt if we have anyone at this time who'd like to talk on an item not on the agenda.
We did not receive any information via email. And I don't see anybody who has their hand raised from the public that wants to make a comment at this time.
All right, thank you very much. So the first thing we're going to do today is we have a presentation. I'm going to ask Glenn to also tell me a little bit about that, and we'll hear the exciting news about what Lisa's been up to.
Good. Can you all see the certificate on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So thank you, President Evans. Tonight we're recognizing an achievement from our Public Information Representative, Lisa Urabe, for obtaining her Master Gardener certificate. Since 1980, the University of California Master Gardener program has been extending UC research-based information about home horticulture and pest management to the public. The UC Master Gardener program is a public service and outreach program under the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources, and it's administered locally by participating UC Cooperative Extension County offices, and we have one here in San Diego County. The Master Gardeners in training embark on a 50-hour program of 16 classes over a 5-month period. So it's a pretty significant commitment of time and energy. Each training class is taught by a specialist in that field to ensure that Master Gardeners receive top quality expert instruction. Students are certified as a Master Gardener after they successfully complete the training course and pass the final exam, and that's where Lisa's at right now. And after graduation, each new Master Gardener must volunteer at least 50 hours of time in public education activities during the first year, helping to educate the public and answer questions on home gardening and pest management. The year 2020 celebrates the 40th anniversary of the Master Gardener program, so it's a pretty big milestone. And for all the Master Gardeners volunteers over that 40-year period, they've donated over 5 million hours collectively. So that's a pretty impressive statistic. San Diego has a little over 300 Master Gardeners, meaning there's one Master Gardener for about every 10,000 residents in the county. So Lisa better be prepared for a lot of phone calls for assistance. And from time to time, Vallecitos has actually brought in local experts to help our residents figure out the best selection, planting, and maintenance strategies for their landscapes. We even brought in an expert to help our employees when we started our employee garden a couple of years ago. But we haven't brought in a master gardener. And now we have our own certified expert in Lisa. So that's pretty cool. In addition to the Master Gardener certificate, Lisa was recently awarded a Vallecitos Individual Achievement Award for her commitment to this program. I know all of our customers will benefit greatly from her accomplishments, and I just want to personally thank Lisa and say congratulations. And I wish we could have presented this in person, but we're left with the virtual meeting. So with that, Madam President, I'll turn it over to you. I have allowed Lisa to speak if she wants to unmute her mic.
I would love for her to. Congratulations, Lisa. Are you willing to speak?
Oh, sure. Just thank you so much to Vallecitos' management and board just for giving me this opportunity. It's been a dream of mine for several years. It's been very difficult to get into the program, so I was just even excited to be accepted. They only take 48 every 2 years for the training. And they usually get about 2 to 3 times that many applications. So I was very excited to be able to be in the program and to have Vallecitos' support. And I really feel like this is going to be a great benefit to our customers, where I can help them during the Water Academy tours, give them a even better garden tour, and help them at the street fairs. We can have a Ask a Master Gardener booth now as part of our street fair. So that'll be great. People can ask their questions on the most environmentally friendly pest management out there to keep our storm drains clean. And so all around, it's just, I think it's going to be a great benefit to San Marcos and the district as well. So thank you.
Well, Lisa, thank you. And I don't know where you found the time to do it. 50 hours and 16 classes in 5 months is a lot. And then committing to give that much time again in education is amazing. Do you also, under pest management, and do you learn about what's a weed versus what's a native plant? Can you identify things like that for people?
Exactly. Yes, that's what we do. And we help with weed management. And it's been a real eye-opener just on how to manage weeds and what's considered a weed. You know, like the California poppy is a weed in other countries.
Right.
But here we love it. So it's interesting. It's anything that takes over your garden that you don't want there is a weed.
Well, are you going to start a business so I can
No.
hire you?
No, but I would volunteer and get some volunteer hours if you need some help.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm really
happy to.
impressed. And I would love to give you a big hug, as you know, for this. I think it's amazing, but it's probably safer than just sending you one EST.
Okay.
And gentlemen, would any of you like to make a comment to Lisa, please? Yes, Director Sinella and then Director Hernandez.
Yeah, just real quick. Awesome job, Lisa. Also really appreciate all the effort that you and Chris and the whole team are doing with social media during this COVID. I know that you guys are really active out there, and I appreciate it, but this is a huge accomplishment, and congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Director Hernandez?
And I too congratulate you, Lisa. This is truly a big commitment. And of course, we know who you are. And of course, your commitment, no doubt you're going to do the 50 hours plus in record time. So congratulations. We make sure that we see you again when we all get together.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Well,
Director Martin.
Yeah, Director Martin.
Thank you, Lisa. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our grounds are wonderful already, so I don't know what you're going to do to make them better, but I'm sure you'll try. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm sorry we didn't get to see you in person, but again, good job and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for the recognition. I appreciate it.
Wow, I'd like to do that myself. Okay, moving on to our consent calendar. We have 5 items under this today, and if there are no questions or comments? I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Hernandez,
Moved by Sanella.
A motion by Sinella and a second by
Hernandez.
Hernandez, or was it vice versa?
That makes, no,
Okay.
Sinella, you can go ahead. You can have the,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt our consent calendar for today. Roll call will follow. Director Sinella,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
yes.
Director Elitharp,
Yes.
Director Martin. Oh,
He's on
are you
mute.
there?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you're so quiet. All right, it's a yes, and I'll say yes, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on now to our action items. We only have 2 today. The first one is, sounds like a great cooperative project. It's the encroachment agreement with the Leeuwenhoek Municipal Water District for the installation, use, maintenance, and repair of radio communication facilities. And I'm guessing, is that going to be Rob speaking? Or will you start it off, Glenn? Oh, I don't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, it'll be General Manager Pruitt taking that item, President Evans. Can you all see the exhibit on the screen?
Yes.
All right. So the item before the board is the consideration of an encroachment agreement with the Leeuwenhoek Municipal Water District for the installation, use, maintenance, and repair of radio communication facilities. OMWD is in the process of converting their entire meter reading program into automated metering infrastructure. This system enables an agency to read all of their water meters without sending personnel out into the field. Individual water meters transmit their usage data to a regional collector antenna, which in turn transmit the data to a centralized receiving facility. In order to access all the meters, numerous collector antennae are required. In OMWD's most recent phase of their AMI rollout, the ideal location for their collector antenna is at the Vallecitos Double Peak tank site, located at 931 Double Peak Drive. OMWD's facilities would consist of a tower, an antenna mounted on the tower, and a base station radio cabinet at the base of the tower. Vallecitos already has an antenna tower at the site, but the use by OMWD will not interfere or affect the district's communication needs. The location selected has already been disturbed and is paved, so there's no environmental issues associated with the installation. Vallecitos works closely with OMWD on a lot of issues, and this encroachment agreement is just another example of that working relationship. So staff recommendation is to approve the encroachment agreement with OMWD for the installation, use, maintenance, and repair of radio communication facilities at the Double Peak tank site. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, gentlemen?
Question.
Director Martin?
Yeah, Glenn, how obtrusive is this going to be compared to what we have up there now? Is it taller, bigger, wider, thicker? I don't see a picture of it, so I have no idea what it looks like, and it's in a sensitive neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm going to look to either James or Ed to help me with that because I haven't seen the specific equipment myself. So Ed, are you with us?
Yeah. So, Director Martin, it'll be an identical tower to the one we have. We looked at replacing ours with maybe a larger one, but it works better for them to install their own. But they use the exact same manufacturer, so it'll be a 40-foot tower with just about 25 feet away from ours. So I doubt the customers will even notice it.
Okay, so it's a single tower, it's a single point?
Correct.
Perfect, thank you. And
Great. Anyone else have a question or comment?
Director Pruitt?
Yes.
The next question is, it's great that we're doing this, and I'm sure we're not receiving anything for it except for good faith. But I just want to make sure we're not always the nice guys, and we do get our side taken care of at times.
Yeah, we actually had those conversations during the negotiations, and we realize it's both sides receive benefits from the multiple relationships that we have. So I think not charging them for this is the right thing to do.
Great, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Director Snella, Director Elitharp? Dr. Hernandez? I just have one question, and that is, when are we anticipating, or did I miss it in the presentation, for this to actually be constructed and mounted?
I don't know the exact schedule. Obviously, they've been holding off. OMWD has been holding off until both sides have approved the agreement. They approved the agreement, I think, 2 weeks ago. So we're the second party to do that. So they're probably ready to go, but maybe Ed knows the schedule a little bit better.
Yeah, they're chomping at the bit. So once this is approved, then they'll move forward. They'll order the materials, and it'll probably be within the next few weeks that they'll start construction.
And once they start construction, is it a quick ordeal?
Yeah. The tower base is poured in one day, and the tower is easily assembled in the next day.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. All right.
And just so one more thing, President Evans, just so
Yes.
the board knows, we will be issuing a joint press release tomorrow. We were holding off waiting to make sure the board approved this item, but if the board does approve this item tonight, we will be issuing a joint press release tomorrow.
Well, I'm glad you're going to do that. And I think it's really great to see another cooperative thing going on with agencies. Believe in Haynes, an easy one, but it's nice to see the agencies coming together. Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
Martin, so moved.
I heard it. I didn't hear who though.
Hernandez? Well,
Okay, Martin made the
So
motion
moved.
and the second was by
Jim Hernandez?
Jim Hernandez. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement with OMWD for the installation, use, maintenance, and repair of a radio communications facility. Roll call. Director Sinella,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Director Elletharp,
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
I'll say yes also. That makes it unanimous. And the only thing I don't like is that word encroachment. It sounds like it's a bad thing.
I blame
God
the
forbid it.
attorneys for that.
Yeah, I always got to blame the attorneys.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And now we will go to 2.2, repair of a 16-inch fail-safe outfall sewer pipeline.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna have our asset management supervisor, Susan Bowman, take that item.
Oh,
tonight.
great.
Hello, good evening, President
Hi.
Evans and members of the board. Yes, this is Susan Bowman, the Asset Management Supervisor. And the agenda item before you today will be the approval of the invoice for CAS Construction for the repair of our 16-inch fail-safe sewer pipeline. And I will be sharing my screen and showing a presentation with this. So bear with me here. Share my screen. Goodness, where is it? Let me from beginning. Okay. And here. Share screen. Ah, there we go. All right, do you see the presentation there?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Yes, this is for the repair of the fail-safe outfall sewer pipeline. And I wanted to just briefly cover what this infrastructure is, this sewer outfall. So there we are. So the pipeline that we're talking about here today is the fail-safe outfall that comes out of Meadowlark. It takes the, usually it's used for any overflow of the recycled water, or also any of the secondary water that may need to be discharged to the Encina outfall. So as you see here, this is the fail-safe outfall sewer pipeline as it comes out, whether it be through secondary, or as I mentioned, it can also receive the tertiary treated recycled water as well. Okay, the alignment that this pipeline follows goes out of the Meadowlark facility, traveling through San Marcos, and then on through the Carlsbad area, and it intercepts the outfall from Encina after the treatment plant. So we're putting that discharge into the outfall pipeline for Encina. And this pipeline is a shared asset among Buena Sanitation District, the City of Carlsbad, and Vallecitos. And there are 3 sections called reaches. The San Marcos Reach, which is 100% Vallecitos. The Buena Reach, which is shared 50-50 with Buena Sanitation District. And then the Carlsbad Reach, which has a cost sharing agreement as well with the 3 different agencies. So what's before you today is the approval of a invoice that was received from Cass Construction in response to some breaks that occurred in April. The first one occurred on this pipeline here on Camino Vita Roble on April 1st. And then on the 11th of April, we had a second break that occurred farther down over here on Palomar Oaks Road. Both of these breaks occurred within the Buena Reach section of the pipeline. Now, what occurred was the wastewater that was, or the recycled water actually, was what was coming through the pipeline at this time. So we had, let me get my notes here. So we had a break that occurred on April 1st, and staff responded, and due to it being recycled water, there was no need to notify the public. We notified the regulating agencies, and then began the effort to contain the recycled water and to bring in the resources necessary to make the repair. At that time, it's determined that because of the depth of the pipeline, as well as the type of equipment that's needed due to the location, which is a fairly inaccessible location, is necessary to bring in Cass Construction to assist the district with these repair efforts. Meadowlark at that time was discharging recycled water. Mar had neared its capacity, et cetera, and we were anticipating rain. This occurred at that time that we had experienced an extreme rain event, if you'll recall. So as we began to get the resources together to make the repair on this April 1st event, April 11th, we went through another break farther down the line. And it's worth noting that the rain events that led up to that occurrence on April 11th, we had over 6 inches of rain over the 5-day period. And in fact, on April 11th, we had 2.88 inches at Palomar Airport just in that one 24-hour period. So it made the repair challenging and a difficult process due to all of the water that was just in the area, safety issues for the street access, etc. So the total repair cost for both of these breaks combined is $173,730 plus an additional $4,105, which was a late invoice that we received for landscape replacement that occurred. So with this being a break that occurred, 2 breaks, they both occurred in the Buena section, the Buena Reach. This will be shared cost between ourselves 50-50 with Buena Sanitation District. The Vallecitos, the agreement calls for Vallecitos to pay the invoices up front initially, and then we seek reimbursement from Buena after we've paid the invoices. So that's how the payment will occur. I want to talk about some of the next steps that the district's going to be taking in response to this event. We have accelerated a capital improvement project that was already on the books, which would have installed some access points into this closed pipeline. There's currently no access points into this closed pressurized
Madam Chair,
system.
question.
Yes.
Is this Director Martin?
Director Martin, I have a question. I'm sorry. Sorry
That's
to cut
right,
you off.
sure.
I didn't want you to get too far past it. Why are we the lead agency on this when both of them occurred in Buenos District?
I can answer that question. Director Martin, we actually, per agreement, we own the pipe. It is a Vallecitos pipe, and Buena has capacity rights in that pipe, so they share the cost. But the ownership of the pipe is Vallecitos's.
So this cost is indeed 50-50?
Yes, and you may recall, but a few years ago, we had another break in this reach, and we called Cast Construction to fix it. I don't recall the amount, and that was also a 50-50 section, and we were reimbursed by Buena 50% of that cost. And I
Great.
think the numbers are similar to this one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, so in order to address this section of the pipeline, we're going to be accelerating this capital improvement program. We'll be installing access points so that we can get to the pipeline, which they currently are not in place. And then we will be accelerating some slip lining activities and doing an assessment to see what other activities are necessary to strengthen this section of the pipeline, in response to these breaks that have occurred.
Another question, Madam Chair.
Yes, all right, thanks. Director Martin.
In either one of these breaks, were we assessed anything by any of the regulatory agencies?
No, this was luckily recycled water, so it's like spilling. It's treated to potable water standards. But the regional board did question what we're going to do to ensure that this pipeline doesn't break in the future. And the board, with this budget, which today's the first day of, did approve the acceleration of this project to be slip line and strengthened. And again, just as a reminder, we're working on an agreement with Buena to ensure that they pay for 50% of it.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Do any of the other directors have a question at this moment since we have a little break? No, I think not. All right, thank you. Continue.
Okay, so again, our request today is that that the board approve the staff recommendation for the payment to Cast Construction for both breaks, the 1st and the 11th, for a total amount of the $157,180.25. And the details of the two breaks and the cost to the two breaks is in your board packet.
Martin, move to approve.
All right.
Second, Director Ellithorpe.
And President Evans, we do.
Okay.
President Evans, this is General
Yes?
Manager Prum. We do have a member of the public that's raised their hand wishing to speak.
Thank you. I was just going to say, does the public have a comment? And then I have one. Okay, and who's on the public?
Yeah, it's Mr. Hunsaker. And Mr. Hunsaker, go ahead and make your comment, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It was pointed out there was 6 inches of rain in this 24-hour period. Your general plan notes that is based on a December something rain event some years ago, which was 3.94 inches. It was shown that the amount of wastewater to be treated more than doubled, I think of 2.3, 2.4 factor. The 6 inch would mean something like a 3 to 4 period. I don't think Meadowlark has all the capacity to do primary and secondary capacity. Furthermore, the question is what's happening on the San Marcos Reach, which is a lot of obsolete tektite, which can burst at any point in time. And at that point, the initial report in 2017, I believe it was, showed that it was pretty much raw sewage. And Vista is not allowed to use that line because the potential that raw sewage may be used by Vista. So Vista's got a section of pipe and it's not responsible for it. So how did we miraculously do primary and secondary treatment on all this deluge? Thank you.
Okay. Did I understand myself? I thought the 6 inches of rain was in more than 24 hours.
Correct.
Over a five-day period.
Over 5 days, it was 6 inches. And then the one day was 2.8 inches the day of the break, something like that?
That's
Is that
correct.
Okay. So that's just a little bit of misunderstanding, but is there anything else to be said, or?
James, you have anything you can add to that?
Yeah, I can. So, Mr. Hunziker, so this pipeline is not a raw sewer pipeline. It's an enclosed system, a pressurized system that is the fail-safe to Melark. Susan, can you go back to the first kind of figure the first slide that kind of shows the diagram of how it works? Yeah, that one. So what this does is it doesn't handle raw sewer. We actually pump into the system, and the reason we were pumping recycled water is because we knew a lot of rain was coming, and our recycled water reservoir was near capacity. So the rain events and the amount of sewer inflow it doesn't have any correlation within this pipeline. And the way Meadowlark works is we scalp raw sewer from our main outfall pipelines to bring it to Meadowlarks, and we have the ability not to pump to Meadowlark in high rain events or high inflow and infiltration potential events. And so we manage the system that way to help ensure that we don't see those peaks at Meadowlark.
All right. Thank you, James. And then I just had one quick question. It said we were going to install access points so we can take care of this pipe better. What exactly, when you say access points, are you talking about, and why wouldn't we have had them in the first place?
I could, President Evans, I could try to take that one too. And Susan, you could jump in if I get anything wrong here. So basically, this has no access points, and the pipe kind of goes up and down hills, and it's made out of ductile iron. It's not a Tech-Eye pipe. So over the years, I'm sure there's corrosions happening in the pipe, hence we're getting the breaks, especially recently. But to install a slip liner, we need to get inside that pipe. And then from there, we might also engineer and design something. So this way we could always access that pipe in the future to put either testing equipment or videoing equipment in to ensure that the liner and the structural integrity of the pipe remains. But currently the way it was designed or installed back in, I think, 1982, it's just a pressurized pipe that goes up and down that has no access points at all because it's meant to be pressurized kind of like a water line. It's not a raw sewer line.
And President Evans, a typical access point in a wastewater system would be like a manhole. That's what you're used to, but that's usually for a gravity system. So for a pressure system like this, if you put a manhole, the sewage or any kind of treated wastewater could get out of it. So these access points would have to be special access points that could withstand the pressure of the operating system, but during low flow events would still allow you to get access into the system.
Thank you for explaining that. I couldn't quite figure out how you were going to do it. Okay, great. So we have a motion moved and seconded that we approve the payment to CAS Construction. And I'll take a roll call vote unless there's any other comments. Okay. Director Sinella.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Elithard.
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
And I'll have a yes on that as well. So it's moved unanimously, approved unanimously. And that is the end of our action items for today. And we're going to go to reports, and that puts GM Pruitt on the spot.
Yeah, if I could real quickly ask Susan to stop sharing her screen too. I don't have much just one item to report. We're dealing with this COVID issue, and we have a lot of our employees telecommuting. And we're planning to bring them back, the rest of them back, this coming Monday, July 6th. But we're going to delay that a little. As you know, there's been a lot more cases in California. And California and San Diego County are slowing down the reopening. And we're kind of putting ourselves in that category of reopening. So we're going to pump the brakes and slow things down another week, and we'll reevaluate. So the next date we've thrown out there to our employees is July 13th to bring the rest of our folks back. But if the conditions worsen or stay where they're at now, we may even delay that. But we're still getting good productive work out of the folks that are telecommuting. So we think it's a situation that we can manage. As we mentioned before, all of our operations folks are at work now. So the men and women that are out there delivering water and treating wastewater, they're at work. It's the administrative folks that are still, some of them are still telecommuting. And that's all I have to offer.
All right, thank you. And Council Gilpin.
Thank you, President Evans. You foreshadowed it, asking me to report on this. The FPPC has issued an amendment clarifying when public officials are required to identify financial conflicts during meetings. This amendment came out of a situation where officials were leaving public meetings prior to an item being called. From the FPPC's perspective, in order to avoid making the disclosure. So they've amended the regulations and clarified that if a member is at the meeting, even if you leave momentarily to the restroom or otherwise, you have to make your financial or disclosure regarding your financial conflict of interest. So in these situations, if you are at the meeting and you leave before the item is considered, you're supposed to make the disclosure before you leave the meeting. If you come to a meeting late after an item has been heard, you're supposed to disclose on the record that you had a financial interest in the item already considered. And finally, the only time you're going to be allowed to avoid making the announcement is if you've missed or you're absent from the entire meeting. I know the Water Authority has had in the past, had the general counsel making the announcements of conflicts of interest. This regulation clarifies that the official themselves have to make the announcement. I'll work with GM Prum. I think if we get you some place cards that direct you how to handle this, it might be helpful. It doesn't come up that much, but just to summarize the rule, if you have a conflict, and you attend the meeting, you need to disclose it before the item is heard. If you show up late, you need to disclose it if the item has already been heard. We've issued a legal alert on this, and I'm happy to send that to you if you want some more information, or happy to answer any questions. Thank you, President Evans.
Thank you. I would like to see what it says. I think the note from council at the Water Authority mentioned something we were going to have a form we were filling out. So I didn't know what that meant, but I'm curious. So
yeah, I think they're intending to give you a form that includes language regarding the specific language, what you need to specifically say relative to the different types of financial interests that you may have. So, I mean, that's what I'm suggesting too, is we can prepare that shorthand. It'll have blanks in it that you have to fill in, but if you have, you know, a financial interest because you do business with the person whose contract is in front of the board, that's one disclosure. If you have a financial interest because your house is within 500 feet of the project, that's another. But I think that's what the Water Authority is intending to do, is create those types of forms.
Okay.
To make it easier for the people, for the board members to make their disclosures.
Okay. Well, would you just send me your alert? And if any of the other board members want it?
Martin, question.
Great. Yes. Dr. Martin.
Jim, are they just clarifying a rule that's been there? I mean, I've always understood that you had to state why at the board meeting. I've always understood that. Is that something new or just people didn't get it?
Well, it is basically the rule, but there was a partial absence provision in there or exception that created this situation where people would leave the meeting, you know, before the agenda item was heard so they could avoid making the announcement and then come back later.
Okay.
It's mostly occurring in, you know, the county board of supervisors or big cities where the meetings go on and they can leave the dais. But all they did was eliminate that partial absence exception so that now the only time you don't have to make a disclosure is if you've missed the entire meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. And is that it for you, Director, Council Gilpin?
It
I'm
is. Thank you, President. Thank you, President Evans.
Okay. Okay, the next report is the San Diego County Water Authority, and we had a very long and interesting meeting this month. The biggest issue in it was the rate and charges that we passed, and I know Glenn has sent out the press release about that. It was over 1,200 pages in the agenda, and it's got some fascinating subject matter. If you want to take your 4 or 5 hours and listen to it, I will not be able to tell you all the details. But I did write down a few, and I hope you'll bear with me and let me just sort of read my thoughts because I'll lose them if I'm just talking. The first thing we did was we had evaluations of the general manager and Council Mark Haddam for the Water Authority, and we extended their contracts for each under the current terms and conditions with no change in compensation. We did extend, the GM had 80 hours merit paid that paid leave that she got when she became GM a year ago, but she had to use it by June 30th. And she's basically been working, as most everybody has, 7 days a week and 14 hours a day. So we've extended that till the end of the year to give her an opportunity to hopefully get away and actually make use of that. They did not accept any increase, and although the employees got a cost of living, they did not. So that was their choices. I don't think the agency GMs or the elected officials and delegates that were involved with the Water Authority were as thoroughly and openly involved as VWD and our board and finance committee, and everybody has been involved in the process. But I do think that even though we have our differences with the Water Authority, I think they worked really hard to come up with what they did. And they did bring it down, and I'm going to forget the exact amount, but we're down to 4.8%. Is that correct? Increase, Glenn?
That's correct.
Okay. And originally we thought it was going to be 7. And according to some of the paperwork they'd shown us when they first heard from MWD, they were thinking it might be as much as 20% to make it work. So that was way in on the other far end of the thing, but it was pretty scary. So anyway, the rate increase is better than anticipated. And they did a great amount of work on it to establish the rates that go along with the reserves, the property tax, and their investment income are expected to raise revenues sufficient to meet the Water Authority's revenue requirements, bond covenants, and other key fiscal policy goals. And we did have big discussions about those goals. So they approved the 4.8 overall increase and an $80 million draw from the rate stabilization fund over the next 2 years. Some of the key points were 94% of this rate increase that we're having to pass on is direct pass-through expenses from MWD, which basically MWD at this point has done nothing to change their budget. They just passed it as was, made no changes. MWD has said the board has said that they will reconsider its rates and charges in September, and the Water Authority promises and put it in the board demanded that we would also review it at that time, and they will immediately put into effect any discounted rates if they occur. We're crossing our fingers on that part. The recent economic and market conditions resulted in updated assumptions for 2021 rates, and that helped them. There was a drop from 2.3 to 0.5% on the escalation assumptions for IID supplies, and that probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but by being able to have to handle less at this time, they were able to cut off many, I don't remember the amount, but lots of money from the responsibilities for this year's budget in 2021. So that would downward revision also happened in funding for dredging with desal. There's been shortfalls there from the red tide, and in the storms we had a lot of turbulence in the water. So the shortfall has given us a chance to delay and defer some of the dredging expenses and things that were anticipated when we first did the budget. So they have set that apart. They've definitely put frozen all employee positions, and as like a VWD. I think we were a good example for them, actually. They also are doing no travel and conferences and that sort of thing. They know that it's going to be dicey for all of us in the future. Nobody knows what's happening. So they did a real early regional baseline water demand forecast. And they were assuming only a very moderate 2.5 increase in near-term regional water demand, because like all of us, the water demand has gone down, the sales have gone down, and the revenue goes down. The main goal, however, when they were doing all this was, and Wes and Mike and our finance team, you worked really hard on this very same point, was trying to balance the short-term rate relief with long-term financial health and fiscal stability, sustainability. So we had a very long discussion on should we or shouldn't we even have a rate increase, and then that led to a long discussion on possibly issuing 120 million in bonds and possibly refunding Series 2013A and 2011 A and B bonds, and that is happening this month. Some of the board members wanted us to hold off until September, hoping that that would make a big change. But it was really critical, and the finance department did a really good job of explaining the importance of our willingness to do an increase now. And this is something that we had in front of us at the same time. And it was critical that you need to keep your ratings, and the belief by the rating agencies that your board is willing to take on some uncomfortable decisions if necessary to keep your business whole. So I just thought it would be really interesting. At one point, I know we were talking about what's the difference between ratings. And this I thought was amazing to me. It said a significant decrease to reserves, even for rate mitigation purposes, is viewed unfavorably by rate agencies. A downgrade or regular outlook or negative outlook by the board would increase borrowing costs and reduce refunding opportunities for savings. That makes sense, but I didn't think about how much is involved in that. So the Water Authority has $350 million in outstanding debt, and a downgrade from AA to AAA or AA plus to an A to AA or an A plus would be equal to 0.25 to 0.50% increase in costs of debt capital. So we would be talking in the terms of, if we couldn't do what we're planning to do right now this month, we would lose between 7.3 and 14.8 million dollars of debt saving possibility. So it helped the board say, let's go ahead, proof the budget, keep our rating, put ourselves in a great position. Hopefully there'll be, the market will be such that we'll be able to what's that word? Refund our bonds and make a huge savings. It also said that in financial flexibility and planned refunding, cost optimization, or issuance of new money would be severely limited or more costly without continued support of its strong credit rating. So I think we should really all pat ourselves on the back, and our whole district, for having a great rating and for maintaining it, because it really is significant in the future as well as right now. So it was a very interesting meeting, and if you have time, you might want to, I don't know, instead of watching TV, listen to the board members talk. And that's the biggest part of what happened was at that meeting. So that's all on that. Thank you for listening. And then Encino Wastewater Authority, Mike Sanella, Director Sanella.
Hey, before we move on from the Water Authority report, I noticed a member of the public would like to speak.
Oh, thank you. I don't see any of that on my screen. Do you see it, Glenn?
I do. Thank you, Director Sanella. It's Lanny. Would you like me to allow her to speak right now? Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Lonnie Luchar, a consultant to the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. I just wanted to clarify one point on the rates, because I think there's been quite a bit of confusion over the rate increase matter, as I've heard it reported out at several of the agency meetings. So the original 2018-2019, taking a step back, the 2018-29 fiscal year represented the lowest water sales for Metropolitan in 40 years. And that resulted in a collection of nearly $200 million less than budgeted. So originally, if they would have done business as usual, it would have been a rate increase proposal of 8 to 12%. And staff worked really hard and had a series of workshops. And ultimately, what staff put forward to the board was a proposed increase of 5% in both 2021 and 2022. But ultimately, the board took action to adopt what was known as option 1, and that was a decrease over the staff proposal. And so that was for a 3% and 4% increase for years 2021 and 2022 respectively. So I did just want to clarify that there were decreases both to expenditures and to the rates, not only from what staff proposed to the board, but also from what was originally would have been required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lonnie. I appreciate that. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. Encino Wastewater Authority.
Yes, we'll have a capital committee meeting in the next 2 weeks, but nothing.
Okay, great. And Director Martin?
Same thing, nothing to report for the week.
Okay. Did we have any standing committee meetings meet by chance? No?
We had a finance committee meeting on Monday.
Oh, you did? Okay. And nothing to report on that?
Director Sanella, do you have any notes on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to update, but we're, I mentioned it at the meeting too. It seems like we go through these annual audits. They come around, they seem like they're monthly audits, but we launched our annual audit process and met with our auditing firm. We're using the same firm that we used last year. I've been in this, I think this is actually probably the third year in a row that we've used them and been very pleased with them. And I know they're going to do a thorough job. One of the things that did come up a lot during the finance meeting and our discussion with them is some of the differences that they're going to focus on around COVID and impacts to revenue and that kind of stuff. So I'm really interested to hear their report back to us when they come to the full board, especially around COVID. That was the meeting.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. I thought it was a very good meeting, and excuse me, but Director Snell and I now have done this for a few years, and Wes and his guys are doing a fantastic job. and keeping us up to date, but also answering all the questions we have. So thank you very much.
Well,
And
thank you, Finance Committee.
President Evans, if I could add, we also talked about the overhead rate, and that item will be coming forward to the board on July 15th.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot. All
We
right.
did- We did have an ad hoc committee meeting of the Hillside. We met with, both Jim Hernandez and I met with GM Pruitt and Rick Giddings. Excuse me. It's not COVID, I just drank something the wrong way. Very interesting meeting. To report out is some of the things that were very good was that we did get the gnatcatcher report back, and there are no nesting gnatcatchers. But they did hear 2 other birds, which doesn't mean that much to us. But Mr. Giddings is getting more information. He's talked to a couple of different people on the grading. He's talked to a couple of different interested people in the process. So it's just all moving along very nicely.
Let me add that also he's looking at an analysis of our existing ownership sites, the VWD, for mitigation on our sage. We will have to do a 2-to-1 mitigation, and so Rick thinks there's probably 20 acres that we need to mitigate for. So we're trying to see if we got 40 acres in any one of our properties or a combination of properties to so we don't have to go out and purchase that mitigation. That was pretty much the meeting.
Well, thank you for that update. Was there more?
Yeah, just a little more. That's right. We own 8 of the properties that he's going to be looking into. 2 of them are fairly large properties. As you know, we have that one property that we finally abandoned because we were losing $50,000 a year on the avocado plantation up in the hills. And then we have another large piece of property on the other hills, so Coronado Hills. So we have a lot of property there that could be used as mitigation.
Thank you. Yes, Hernandez.
No, we'll see what the analysis brings, because I've been actually out to that property, the avocado property. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was a boondoggle. So
Is that the one by the freeway?
yeah. That's we'll see if there's any hope there.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys are working on that and it's moving forward. All right. So that's the end of reports, I believe. So other business, and that is only the CASA virtual annual conference. It's coming up August 12th and 13th, and you did receive the information from Glenn as far as the schedule.
President Evans,
Yes.
you skipped over 3.6 meetings.
Oh, I thought I said that. Oh, I'm sorry. What are those reports?
And I attended the virtual meeting with the special districts meeting. It was interesting. It was peers and beers, and had no idea what to expect. And it turned out to be informative. At least I thought so. The Public Records Act was talked about, and who's got to give what to when, and there's help there from BBK, actually, if we're interested. Then there was a primer on PERS, which I kept nodding my head going, yeah, we did that. So we're way ahead of the curve on a lot of these districts. And then the last one that, cash reserves. There was another primer on cash reserves, and we're in very good shape relative to cash reserves. So it was worth the couple of hours that we spent there. So that was CASA.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. So you felt that the virtual conferencing was fine?
Well, It was,
I mean, it was worth it. It wasn't the same,
yeah,
but
it was okay. I still can't wait to get back to face because, you know, this reminds me of the Mars movie where the guy's talking to his family in the headquarters through the virtual. I'm not for it personally.
all right, thanks. Okay. Any others on meeting, conferences, or seminars attended? No, then I think we can move on to the end of other business and we can move to
Director Evans?
director. Oh dear.
Director Martin,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I attended that same CSDA conference. And Beers and Peers, that was like, there was some frivolity, but there were 3 very good points, and I think Jim brought them up already. But also talking about the Public Records Act and the UAL unfunded policies we've already looked at and done. So there were very interesting things to see that there were affirmation on many of the things that we did. And I thought that in the future, I don't know about the Beers and Peers, but they're going to have a couple in the future that are more pointed on objectives. And I think they'll be very good.
Thank
That's it.
you. I'm sure they'll get better as they go along. It's like everything. We have to figure out how to make it work to get the most out of it. Okay, so now I believe I'm at director's comments and future agenda items. Does anyone have any? Looks like that's a no. I would ask if there's a possibility sometime, probably not till September or October, Glenn, but I would love to have the Water Authority do a presentation on their energy management policies and some of the exciting things that are going on and their attempts to address that issue. So when you feel there's room on the agenda, I'd like you to reach out and bring, I think the board would really enjoy that.
I will.
And also, is there any chance that we'll be able to take a little bit of a breather in August, or is it a full agendas every time?
I think the August agendas may be fairly light, so I'll look at that, maybe trying to consolidate everything into one meeting in August, if that's the
Okay.
board's desire. It'd be nice to give the board members and staff an opportunity to take a vacation if you can go anywhere now, but we'll look at that.
Okay, thank you. And that's all. And so I just hope you all have a safe, sensible, socially distanced 4th of July and a wonderful evening. Thank you all, and thank you all for listening in. Good night.
Thank you.